How impressive has Southern Miss's turnaround really been? It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, I'm Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network out there. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. All right, we will get into ODU hosting Troy, and JMU was not ranked in the latest college football playoff rankings. But one of the things, again, from this past weekend that I wanted to get into is how impressive Southern Miss's turnaround has really been. And obviously, Charles Huff brought a bunch of players from Marshall. Not as many people as we would think. A couple of key players, obviously. BRAYLON BRAXTON, one of them. Josh Moulton, the other one. And I think there's more players on offense or on defense than there are on offense. All right. But a lot of the guys who left Marshall either ran out of eligibility, went elsewhere, or went pro. So we appreciate the transition. Although I will say, someone on the comments suggested that Charles Huff could take over for Bob Chesney at JMU. Can you imagine this podcast if Charles Huff takes a third job in the Sun Belt in 3 years? That would be insane. Nonetheless, that's a different subject. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, let's put that out there. But nonetheless, it made me laugh earlier on Wednesday. All right, so obviously, the one thing that, big fan of Will Hall, could never settle on a contract. Or could settle on a quarterback. Sorry, could never settle on a quarterback. Either got hurt or transferred. He got a big time quarterback from Mississippi that was going to Tulane, and he immediately got hurt and never got back in there. And it never worked out. I'm having conversations with people about why this guy didn't work out or that guy didn't work out. Napier at Florida never settled on a quarterback. All right. Desimo's seasons haven't been as good as maybe they could have been because the quarterback is always hurt. All right. That's why last year's job by Desimo was so good. And if somehow they get to a bowl game this year, that's going to be not as equally as good, but very, very impressive nonetheless. Maybe a better coaching job. And so obviously Southern Miss has BRAYLON BRAXTON. And that's such an easy deal because now Braylon can tell the system, as long as it was the Southern Miss system and not Blake Anderson's system, because now everyone's learning a new system. I remember when, I think it was Bill O'Brien getting the Alabama job. I was doing radio in Mobile, and Bill O'Brien was coaching Mac Jones. They won the national championship that year. And even Nick, I said, they're not going to make Mac Jones and everybody learn a new offense. They've been playing one offense, which I think was either Sarkisian's or Lane Kiffin's offense, which is a combination thereof, probably Sarkisian's offense, right? And why would you have everybody learn it when you could just tell Bill O'Brien? And that's exactly what Saban said. Why am I going to teach 60 players the new offense when I can just teach one guy the offense we're using? Easy. And then you mix and match because it's different players, and we're going to stress what our players can do, and we'll figure that out as we go along. All right. They have not had a lot of particularly close ball games, right? They did eke by Arkansas State, and you guys know I'm a win and move on guy. They needed all 6 turnovers, and they got them. All right, 27-21. I would say score-wise, obviously they held on against Georgia Southern, but they had a big lead against Georgia Southern. All right. But some of these games weren't close. Jackson State wasn't close. App State wasn't close. Jacksonville State wasn't close. The Cajuns was probably closer than that score would indicate. I think Southern Miss fans would tell you they did not play particularly well in that football game, at least not offensively. And the big play was the 3rd and 14, going for like a 98-yard record touchdown passing record for Southern Miss. They blew out Monroe, and as though they eked by Arkansas State, they never, I think they trailed 3-0. Is that what it was? Or they trailed 7-3. All right. But after that, they were in control of the ball game. They were up 3-0, fell behind 7-3, and then Arkansas State never tied it up after that. So Southern Miss was in control of that football game. So it's really been an impressive turnaround. And so now let's go to the statistics. All right. And obviously the big one standing out is going to be their interceptions. They lead the nation with 20 interceptions. That's through 9 games. Last year they had all 6. And even if 3 were lucky, they still only had they still only had 6. Last year they forced 4 fumbles. Already this year, they have forced 5 fumbles. So they getting to 10 is going to be tough. But, a couple more, and, they could easily double. They could double what they did last year. All right. Then we want to go to the offense and the defense, obviously. Because if you go to offense, they're averaging 33 points a game. All right. Do we even need to? I mean, did they average 20 last year? Because I'm going to guess not. They were last. They averaged 18. They averaged 15 points a game. They barely scored 2 touchdowns a game last year. They're scoring more than 4 this year. All right. Now flip it over to the defensive side, where, let's see, last year they allowed 37 points a ball game. So that's more than 5 touchdowns a game. This year, they're allowing 24. So they're allowing 3+ touchdowns a game. Big difference. Huge difference. And I think we asked, I'm not sure if we got an answer from Charles Huff, because you got the whole, believing and installing a culture. When did the culture go from believing or to I'm not hoping, but for them to believing? And maybe it was the La Tech loss. All right. As it turns out, La Tech isn't all that great. All right. Things can be different. I certainly haven't been keeping up with La Tech. If you did watch, or I'm sure we saw, I don't know about highlights, but saw it on social media, the meltdown that La Tech had against Delaware last week. They are a total of 5-4. If you play that ball game again, Southern Miss is winning that game. And what Charles Huff said coming out of that game is, we weren't ready to play. We were a little bit too full of ourselves. And you got to be ready to play. And we didn't make the plays that we needed to make. And maybe, like you hear all the time, you learn more from a loss than you do from a win. Is that would probably have been after? That's after the App State game. Yeah, that's after the App State game. So they got a little full of themselves. If they would had one game back, that would probably be it. All right. And with all of the G5 stuff and the football stuff, is JMU going to get in? South Florida going to get in? North Texas going to get in? Tulane, Memphis. We are really overlooking the job that Charles Huff has done. And if they do finish up 10-2 and go play JMU in the Sun Belt Championship game, that's a Friday night. Hopefully I will be there. They'll maybe start to get a little bit more pub to go from 1-11 to 10-2. Because again, he's going to be coach of the year. Period. End of story. You can't really count going in and beating JMU to get National Coach of the Year, because that doesn't count either. It's not post game, doesn't count. It's regular season. He should get some votes, and not just a few. But again, it'll be Cignetti and Elko, right? That's who will get most. Ryan Day will be overlooked because he's the defending national champions. All right. But those will be your likely candidates. But Charles Huff should get a lot of love because the job he has done this year. I don't want to say it's a miracle because some people in Mississippi saw 8, 9, 10 wins coming. I did not. I went back and looked. I picked them 5th in the Sun Belt West. All right. I picked them 5th. I said maybe a bowl. I think I overinflated them, although it would be interesting to see them play Mississippi State now compared to game 1. But and Mississippi State's better than we thought they were as well. So I think the job that Charles Huff has done at Southern Miss has been, again, miracle is overstating it, but it should be mentioned as one of the great coaching jobs in college football this season. All right. They're getting a lot of love at Kennesaw State. Charles Huff should be getting a lot of love at Southern Miss. And even Southern Miss fans are realizing, there's a lot of jobs out there. Like, Charles Huff go to Arkansas? I mean, I haven't heard his name connected with that, but they seem to need a coach. And Charles Huff has done as good a job as anybody this year in the country. Period. End of story. That I don't think can be debated. All right, let's take a timeout. ODU hosting Troy. That is a nationally televised game that maybe some of us will be able to watch and maybe not, as YouTube and Disney continue to do battle. We'll do that after I tell you about FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Funny how the Pelicans don't ever make a late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Did get a new, we had a little shindig today at work. They got a little, this is glass, actually. It's nice. And Schultz is going to break that. That's what's going to happen. Hopefully not. That is a nice little glass bottle is basically what it is. Maker's Mark, as it turns out. For those who are listening and not watching. And for those listening, we're once again, just drinking diet green tea. We had the good stuff last night. All right, JMU and ODU playing tonight. Nationally televised ball game, 7:30 Eastern time. ODU 6-3 overall, 3-2 in the Sun Belt. Troy 6-3 in the Sun Belt. We'll try this again. ODU 6-3 overall, 3-2 in the Sun Belt. Troy 6-3 overall, 4-1 in the Sun Belt, and they came up short in a big way against Arkansas State. And Tucker Kilgrease, who had played so well for so many weeks, did not play well last week, although I'm not sure how much that was his fault. It seemed like Arkansas State was in the backfield all game long. They're going to play Goose Crowder. All right. This is a 10.5-point game. Does not feel like it's 10.5 points. In fact, it's now 12.5 points. It's up to 12.5 points. Let's just check out Old Dominion, shall we? Like, it's been a minute, right? Okay. So they beat Coastal 47-7. They lost to Marshall 48-24. In a ball game, they were favored by like 2 touchdowns. James Madison, it was only a couple of points, and they lost 63-27. They beat App State 24-21. Should we see what that line was? Yeah, that line was 13.5. And I'm going to guess they covered against Monroe 31-6. They did. It was 16.5 points. All right. I think Troy is too good to that they're going to get blown out by 2 touchdowns, basically. Technically, 2 touchdowns without the extra points. So I'm going to take Troy to cover. I'll take ODU to win, but I'm going to take Troy to cover in this one. And again, we'll talk about this. I saw this from some Southern Miss fans. Not picking on them. Everybody does this, okay? Coaches do it, players do it, broadcasters do it. Talk more about this. I think we brought it up the last time. It's about playing the whole 60 minutes. We haven't played a complete game yet. All right. What do you think the other team's thinking? Right? A lot of times we hear coaches say, the late great Tony Robichaux was fantastic, but football coaches say this as well. If we do what we're supposed to do, we'll be fine. Well, isn't the other coach saying the same thing to his players? You have someone trying to stop you. You have someone trying to score on you. So, you get a penalty, you get a turnover, the other team gets a little momentum. It's really difficult to have a complete game. We'll even say, was JMU's a complete game, 63-27 over ODU? No. Wasn't a complete game in the first half. Completely dominated in the second half. So I don't understand the whole, we haven't played a complete game yet. Arkansas played a pretty complete game, I would say, against Troy. And yet Troy still had a shot, right? They made it a 2-score game and got a turnover, but turned the ball right back over. So when you guys hear that, if you're dominating the ball game for 35 out of the 20, I would rephrase that. If you're controlling the ball game for 35 out of the 25 minutes, you've had a pretty complete ball game. You do it 40 out of the 20, really complete. And a lot of times it's 45, and then somebody makes a late comeback. Like ODU was in control of that App State ball game, kept on missing field goals and turning it over. AJ Swan came in and put 2 late scores on to make it a 3-point ball game. But ODU was going to win that football game, right? Because they were in control of most of the game. Now, if you want to say they didn't finish, like who have we talked about that? I think that it's been ODU. ODU has not finished strong. All right. There is a difference between playing a complete ball game and finishing strong. And ODU a couple of times this year, I don't think has not finished strong. They didn't finish strong against Liberty. There was another ball game, I thought. Obviously, they had all those. I mean, they've had turnovers a lot. They had a bunch of turnovers in these games. Indiana, they had a bunch of turnovers. Obviously, Marshall, they had some turnovers. James Madison was a turnover. They were a sieve. And obviously, they didn't finish strong against App State. So that is different than playing a complete game. I mean, they played a complete game for 3 quarters, and then the other team was trying. So we shall see. Again, I like Troy. Troy may even win this football game. All right, let me check out what's the defense here? Because his ODU's defense is number 2. That's right. All right, 23.5 points. 23.5 points a game. Troy scores about 27 a game. All right. Let's see offensively. ODU is 32 points a game. Troy's right behind ODU in scoring defense, 24.1 points a game. So it should be a good ball game. So I don't really see how this is a 13.5 point or 12.5 point game. I think this is going to be Troy making it close and maybe even winning. Let's see what that could be close. All right. ODU needs to get off to a good start in this one, and we'll see how Jared Parker is going to use these quarterbacks. Is Tucker KILGREASE going to start? Are they playing every other series? Are we going with a hot hand? Are we going to switch between the first half and then stay with one guy in the second half? We'll see. All right. Or is he just gamemanship by trying to get ready for two quarterbacks? Which, is there a big difference between the two? I don't think so. All right, let's take a time out. College football playoff rankings came out. JMU did not make it. We'll talk about that next, right after I tell you about Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side. Need parts for a fast project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. And their Trade Master perks, like priority shipping and dedicated support, make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Thanks for making it the first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We were up almost 100% from last October. Pretty impressive. When I say we, I mean Locked On Sunbelt. So that's you and me, because without you, there's no, I'd be here, but there'd be no over almost 100% increase. That's audio and video. I don't really understand the math, but it doesn't matter. With just the videos and just the full length videos, we would be like 150% higher, almost 150% higher from last October. So thank you so much. All right, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. We can take another sip of the Diet Green tea. If you do hear a bottle crashing and breaking, you know what it is. All right, so JMU not ranked. USF was ranked, right? What was it, 24th? I got to go back and see them. Yes, 24th. So Cincinnati was 25th, USF 24. Couple things they said there. They did hold JMU's schedule against them, which we mentioned. They do not have a flashy win. All right. If they'd beaten Louisville and they were undefeated, they could be in the top 12 right now. That's just the way the rankings work, or at least the polls work. I don't know about the rankings, but they'd certainly be in the top 20, top 15, because they would have been in the top 20. They would have been in the top 25 as soon as they beat Louisville. All right. But they did not beat Louisville. All right. They do not have a great win against Georgia State, but, Tulane lost to USTA on the road, right? Memphis lost to UAB on the road. Those, you can't say that JMU didn't play well on the road when they won, and these teams actually went on the road and lost. All right. USF has a couple of nice wins. Boise State, although that's not quite as nice as it was. And Florida. Not that great a win either, to be honest with you, but it's SEC. All of a sudden, that Miami blowout ain't looking so great either. They got blown out by Miami. All right. And Memphis beat USF by 3. All right. And so they are the team that I am concerned about. Everyone keeps in the American, and boy, I don't follow anybody from the American as far as I know, and yet they're all in my timeline. Maybe it is they're just mentioning JMU or something like that. I don't know how it gets in there. I don't think I'm following anybody, but they are there. And I generally don't respond. Sometimes I do. Just because I want to see their reaction. All right. Guys are saying, I did respond, all these teams would put up 40 against JMU. And I'm like, well, Tulane hasn't scored. Tulane couldn't put 40 up against UTSA. You know who did put up 40 against UTSA? Texas State. Have they won since? Right? Someone actually pointed out, in fact, a Green Wave fan pointed out, Tulane hasn't scored 40 all year. So, you know, so it's a little delusional over there. We'll see what happens. I mean, North Texas only has the one loss. I think they have a good win. Is that Arkansas? Or is that Memphis? Now I gotta check. Because one of them did it. Let's do scores. Let's do American. Let's do Memphis. Let's see who Memphis has beat. Memphis did beat Arkansas 32-31. All right. You're going to get credit. G5 teams are going to get credit for that, although it's not that impressive of a win, right? I mean, both Florida and Arkansas, both fired their coaches. I mean, USF won because Florida missed a field goal. Isn't that what happened? So, I mean, sometimes you got to take that with a grain of salt. Let's see. Some of these teams don't play each other. You want them to get the brain, the head hurting. You know, UNT doesn't have a big win. They beat Washington State. Is that their big win? They got blown out by South Florida at home by 27. I mean, UNT does not have a big win. I don't know where we're going with that. They beat South Alabama pretty handily, and they hammered Washington State, but I don't see a big win there. They beat Navy when Navy was undefeated. Well, Navy's going to be closer to 7-5 or 8-4 than they are 12-0. All right. You know, they lost to UNT. They lost to Notre Dame. They get South Florida this weekend. There's Army in there. That's like the last game they're going to win. So we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out. JMU wasn't quite as dominating as they had been against Marshall. Marshall put up a fight, right? On the road. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying winning on the road is impressive, and winning by 2 scores on the road is impressive. Marshall had shots to win that football game, right? If that ball game was 42-7, it may have gotten JMU more noticed, all right? And if you're not paying attention to the Sun Belt, you didn't realize that Marshall, up until playing Coastal, had been playing well for a minute. So you got it. That's, you know. And then Paul Feinbaum is going on. It's just going off that, like, the sixth team in the SEC should get in there because whatever reason, right? You know, even these guys are saying that, you know, no one wants to see JMU and Oregon because, you know, it would be a blowout. Would it? Would it? I don't know. Somewhere along the way, I'm telling you, that G5 team is going to win the G5 team is going to win that first round matchup. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. All right. I'm not sitting here telling you G5 team is going to win the national championship. All right. Or maybe even 2 games, but they're going to trip up. They could be getting beat by a couple of scores, a couple of plays go their way. And all of a sudden the Power 4 team finds themselves behind, or they got to, you know, get a first down and they don't. And all of a sudden, all the pressure's on them. You know, we'll see. Obviously, it'd be great if we could get JMU against Indiana. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. I presume, you know, the loser of, if they're both undefeated, Ohio State and Indiana, are not going to fall out of the top 4, so they're going to get a bye. But it would be great if it was. Then you'd have some drama, all right, and a kind of a made-for-TV sporting event, all right, if you got JMU versus IU. So that would be a lot of fun. Also, it's all about me. I'd be able to go to the game. We can only drive so much. I still think I have a couple of days off. But in that case, I don't even think I would need to take a day off to go. I just take off the day of the game. Although maybe I have to, depending on when the game was, maybe I have to take the next day off. So maybe 2 days off. So we shall see. I do have the weekend off for the Sun Belt Championship, but I don't have that Friday off. I'm going to have to ask for that. Probably should do that now just to make sure I can get it off. It is in a few weeks. All right. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll probably do a halftime report of the Georgia Southern, of the Troy ODU ball game. And let's see what basketball we have on a Wednesday. JMU is playing, Texas State is playing, and Marshall has beaten Elon 96-89. So that is a final. I won't tell you what the other ones are, as those are ongoing and they'll be old by the time you get to this. So we'll maybe do a quick Thursday morning recap of the basketball as well. Probably should have done a little bit more basketball. Arkansas State had a huge rally. That's impressive to do that on the road. Cajuns are offensively challenged. I'm just going to say that. Watch that ball game. First of all, they can't hit a free throw. That's a problem. And second of all, they either take open threes or fadeaway jumpers. That's a recipe for averaging 60 points a game. And that's what they do. So defensively, though, they're pretty good. So if somehow they could start to average 70 points a game, they'd be a much better basketball team. But big win for Arkansas State last night on the road against Missouri State. And the Cajuns fall to their buddy Ron Hunter at Tulane. Was a good basketball game. It was a good basketball game. It's not like the Cajuns were getting blown out. Tulane pulled away. Cajuns actually had a lead in the second half, but they are offensively challenged is the nice way to put that. All right, so we'll do more basketball as we go along. Let me know what you guys think about Southern Miss's impressive turnaround. Give me a pick on ODU and Troy and your thoughts on JMU not being in the college football rankings. All right, we'll talk to you again on Friday. Never know what day it is. On Friday, we'll preview more of this weekend's matchups. Thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt. Your teams every day, part of the Locked On Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Have a great Thursday, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Friday.